Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about domain and range, but this time it will be on what we call continuous graphs or continuous functions. All right, so what is a continuous function? Well, think about what the word continuous means. Sometimes we can think of it as never ending. So when we talk about functions, it's a graph that contains an infinite number of ordered pairs, lines, and curves. All right, so important notes to find domain and range of these continuous functions. To find domain, we look for the edges of the function on the x-axis. To find the range, we look for the edges of the function on the y-axis. If you hit an arrow on the edge, it means that you are going to infinity or negative infinity. Just depends on which way it's pointing. If it's negative infinity, that means it's either pointing left or down, and left for domain, down for range. If it's pointing to the right for domain or up for range, then it'll be a positive infinity. All right, set builder notation. So this is what we'll be focusing on the most. Okay, so in set builder notation, it's written as what we call a compound inequality. So our domain is written this way. Our x such that our smallest number is less than x less than our biggest number. It's always going to follow that pattern. The only thing that might change is if you have to put an or equal to underneath those symbols, depending on your circles. Range, same pattern, only instead we have a y in those two spots instead of x. Okay, so we'll use less than or equal to or greater than or equal to if there's an actual point on that value. And then we use just less than or just greater than if we're going to infinity, okay, if the edge is an arrow. All right, interval notation. Written using parentheses, brackets, and just the smallest and biggest number. So throughout the notes here, I'm going to mostly focus on the set builder notation, but this is just another nice one to have. So interval notation shows regular parentheses are used around numbers that you are not equal to. So kind of like using the less than or greater than symbols. The brackets are used around numbers that you are equal to. So when we include that line underneath. Okay? Parentheses always go around infinities because we never actually reach that number. All right, so here we have a graph, and they want us to find the domain and the range of the function. All right, so I'm going to start with domain. And just like it says, I'm going to look for the edge of my graphs along the x-axis. So here's my furthest point to the right, okay? And that lines up with this spot right here on the x-axis. I'm just lining it up. All right, well, if I come over to this edge, the furthest point to my left is an arrow. So that means that it's going to actually keep going. I'm just going to draw in a line. And it would look like that. So I have this inequality graphed, and now I can write what that inequality would look like in set builder notation. So I have a closed circle because I had a point, and then this keeps going and going and going to the right according to my graph. All right, so my inequality then is going to look like this. X such that x is less than or equal to 4. Okay, so here's my 4. It was a closed circle, so all my other x values are less than or equal to that 4. Now let's talk range. Range is going to be everything dealing with the y-axis, all the values that we hit along the y-axis. So I'm going to start with my lowest point. That's this guy right here. And then I'm going to find the upper edge. And this point here is the highest one I go. So I'm going to mark that on my y-axis. So I marked my lowest point on the y-axis and my highest point on the y-axis. And then I can draw a line in between. So now we have this graph here. And essentially what we're talking about is all the values along the y-axis that are between -5 and +2. So we want to be able to show or write in a way that shows that all my y values are in between -5 and +2. All right, so let's see what that looks like. So here would be my inequality. All my y values are in between -5 and +2. And so we literally put the y value, or the y, in the middle, in between that -5 and -2. And then you'll see, because I had actual points as my upper and my lower, okay, I put that or equal to line underneath my inequality symbols. They will always be less than. All right, so I want you to come over to this graph here, and I want you to try this one on your own. Pay attention to the arrows and pay attention to your lowest point. Go ahead, pause the video now. Okay, let's go down to the next one. All right, so here they want us to find the domain and range of the function and then write our answer in, well, this is an interval notation, but we're going to do it in set builder notation. Okay, so I know all of these say interval notation. We're doing it all in set builder notation. Okay, so our domain. Okay, so again, remember, our domain is everything, whatever we're using along the x-axis. So I'm going to find my point furthest to the left. That's right here. And my point furthest to the right, right here. And I'm going to mark that. Okay, so my point furthest to the left, my point furthest to the right. So my domain is everything in between, because if you think about it, if I were to trace the outside of this circle, okay, every ordered pair is going to have a value, an x value, that's somewhere between -5 and 3. All my x values for every point along this graph is somewhere between -5 and +3. So I like just drawing it in like this because it helps us see it. So my domain is every x value between -5 and -3, or +3. And that's what it would look like in set builder. All my x values in between -5 and +3. Because we had actual points, we used the or equal to version. All right, now let's talk about our range. So again, range, it's those y values. My lowest point's at -1, my highest point is at 7. So I just mark that on my circle, and now I'm going to bring that over to the actual y-axis, just so I can line it up and get a better idea. All right, so my range is all my y values between -1 and -7. All my y values in between -1 and +7. And again, we had actual points, so I have to have the or equal to version. Okay, I want you to come down here, and I want you to try this one on your own. Again, do it in set builder notation, not interval notation. All right, and so again, pay attention to your arrows, and pay attention in this case to your highest points. All right, this is the end of the video, so you can stop now. I will see you in class next time.